In this next lecture, we are going to discuss about natural broadening, which is also termed as intrinsic broadening, or it is also called as lifetime broadening. So this is also called as lifetime broadening. So from its name, you can guess that this broadening is due to the lifetime of an energy state. So this type of broadening is due to the lifetime of an energy state. So in this lecture, we are going to determine the line shape function for the case of natural broadening, and from there we will find out the full width at half maximum, that is we will find out delta omega. So first of all, we are going to see the classical explanation of natural broadening. So the quantum explanation we have already studied earlier, that is which is explained by the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So due to the uncertainty in lifetime, there is uncertainty in energy, and hence there is uncertainty in the frequency of the photons which are emitted from that system. So that is the quantum explanation, and we will again go through the quantum explanation in the next lecture. So in this lecture, we are going to see the classical explanation of the natural broadening. So in this, first of all, we are going to consider a two-level system. That is, we have one energy state, which is the ground state, and we have the another energy state E2, which is the excited state. So let's say atoms are present in the excited state. So there is a natural tendency that these atoms, after some time, they will go to the lower state. And as we have said in the previous lectures, that there is an emission of photon during this process. But in actual, the transition can occur in two ways. First is the radiative transition, means the atoms can go to the ground state by the emission of radiation, or you can say the photons. Or in another way, the transition can happen, and that is called as the non-radiative transition. So this spontaneous transition which occurs, so these atoms which are present in the excited state, after spending some time, they will go to the ground state. And that is called as the spontaneous transition. So that is the spontaneous transition. And this spontaneous transition is of two types. First, that we have already studied, which is the radiative transition, means emission of photons, which we call as spontaneous emission. So first is the radiative transition, means spontaneous emission, and another method is non-radiative transition. So some of the atoms will go to the ground state by radiative transition, and some will go by the non-radiative transition. Now what is this non-radiative transition? As its name suggests, means there are no photons emitted in this case. So when the atom makes a transition to the lower state by non-radiative transition, in this case no photons are emitted, and the extra energy is lost to the surroundings. So for example, in the case of solid, the energy will be given to the lattice, and if it is a gas, then the non-radiative transition means that the energy is given to the walls of the container. When the atoms they strike to the walls, they will lose their energy and they will make a downward transition. So that is what we mean by non-radiative transition, means there are no photons emitted in this case. So let's say the probability of the spontaneous transition per unit time is given by P. So this is what we have supposed in the lecture of lifetime of an energy state. So in that case, we found that the number of atoms in the excited state. Number of atoms in the excited state at any time t is given by n20, which is the initial number of atoms at time t is equal to 0 in the excited state, into e power minus p into t. So there p was the probability of the transition per unit time. So there we called this p as the probability of the downward transition per unit time, which is nothing but the probability of spontaneous transition per unit time. So p is nothing but probability of spontaneous transition per unit time. And we know that spontaneous transition means either it can be radiative transition or it can be non-radiative transition. So in a system of atoms which are excited, which are present in the excited state, in that system the atoms may go to the ground state. If they are going to the ground state by spontaneous transition, they can either make a radiative transition or they can make non-radiative transition. So here we are not taking into account the case of stimulated emission, because in this case we are considering the lifetime. We are considering the concept of lifetime of an energy state. So lifetime always occurs in the case of spontaneous transition, whereas lifetime has no meaning in the case of stimulated emission. So stimulated emission occurs due to the external photon. So the number of atoms in the excited state which are left at time t will be given by n20 into e power minus p into t. So p is the probability per unit time in the case of spontaneous transition. So this is the probability of the spontaneous transition per unit time, and this probability is equal to probability of radiative transition plus the probability of non-radiative transition. So let's say probability of radiative transition per unit time is given by capital A, and probability of non-radiative transition per unit time is given by capital S. So probability of the spontaneous transition per unit time will be the sum of these two probabilities. So P will be nothing but equal to A plus S. And in the case of lifetime of an energy state, in that article we took tau as the lifetime of the energy state. So if tau is the lifetime of the energy state, and we did the whole derivation and we came up with the formula that P is equal to 1 by tau, or you can say tau is equal to 1 by P. So there we derived this result. So probability per unit time is given by 1 divided by lifetime of the energy state. So this is the total lifetime of the energy state. Now radiative transition. For the case of radiative transition, let's say tau Sp, this is the lifetime, this is the time, decay time related to the radiative transition, and in the case of non-radiative transition, let's say we denote it by tau Nr. So in the case of non-radiative transition, we represent the lifetime as tau Nr, and the lifetime or the decay time which is associated with the radiative transition is given by tau Sp. So this means spontaneous emission. So this is due to the spontaneous emission. So as we have seen that P is equal to A plus S. So P is nothing but 1 divided by tau, which is the total lifetime. So this will be 1 divided by tau, and A is 1 divided by tau Sp, which is the decay time associated with the radiative transition or the spontaneous emission, plus 1 divided by tau Nr. So P is nothing but equal to capital A plus S. So from here we can substitute P as 1 by tau. So that will be equal to N2 of 0 into e power minus t by tau. So you can see that the number of atoms in the excited state which are left at any time t, which are present at any time t in the excited state, is given by this formula, and you can see that there is an exponential decrease. So number of atoms in the excited state, they decrease exponentially. So the graph will look something like this. So if on the vertical axis you have number of atoms at any time t, and on the horizontal axis you plot time. So this will look something like this. So this represents the initial number of atoms which are present in the excited state, and with time there is an exponential decrease. Now if we consider a two-level system, let's consider a two-level system with n20 atoms in the upper level at time t is equal to 0 due to instantaneous pulse. So let's say all the number of atoms are present in the excited state. So due to an instantaneous pulse or an instantaneous burst of photons, we make all these atoms to go to the excited state. So this is just a hypothetical situation. So let's say all the atoms, they are in the excited state. So we know that the number of atoms which are left in the excited state is given by this formula, means there is an exponential decay. Now what will be the intensity of the photons which are emitted from this system? So as we know that the atoms, they can make a downward transition either by emitting a photon or by non-radiative transition. So when all these atoms, millions and billions of atoms, they will go to the ground state, they will make a spontaneous transition. So there will be obviously emission of photons. Along with the non-radiative transition, there will be emission of photons. So as we know that the intensity of the light any time t depends upon the rate of downward transition. So more is the rate of the downward transition, more will be the intensity of the light which is emitted from the system. So more is the rate of the downward transition, more will be the intensity of the light which is emitted from this particular system. So intensity at any time t is proportional to the rate of the downward transition, and we know that the rate of spontaneous transition is directly proportional to n2t. So this we have already seen that the rate of spontaneous transition is directly proportional to n2t, means number of atoms which are still present in the excited state. So if intensity is directly proportional to rate of downward transition, and rate of downward transition is in turn directly proportional to number of atoms which are present in the excited state, so we can say that intensity at any time t is directly proportional to n2 of t. And n2 of t is nothing but, so we can write it as directly proportional to, in place of n2 of t we can write the exact formula, and that will be n2 of 0 into e power minus t by tau. And if you will remove the proportionality, that will come out to be equal to I of 0, means intensity at time t is equal to 0 into e power minus t by tau. So this will be the intensity of the light which is emitted from this system at any time t. So you can clearly see that intensity of the light which is emitted from this system also decreases exponentially. So as the number of atoms in the excited state decrease exponentially, so does the intensity. Intensity also decreases exponentially with time. Now what is intensity? Intensity is nothing but mod E square. So E is the electric field which is associated with the light or the photons. So we take mod of E, and when you will do it square, so intensity is directly proportional to this factor. So mod E square is nothing but, so you can write it as E into E star. So E star is just the conjugate of the electric field. Conjugate means that wherever there is iota, you will replace it by minus iota. So that is what how do we find? That is how we find the conjugate. So if there is electric field and you want to find its conjugate, so wherever there is iota, you replace it by minus iota. So intensity is directly proportional to E into E star. So from here you can see that intensity is, we are given with the intensity. So if you are given with the electric field, by multiplying the electric field with its conjugate will lead to the intensity. But here you already know the intensity of the light which is emitted from a two-level system. So intensity is given by this factor. So now you want to find the electric field. So you want to do the reverse process. So intensity is given by this factor. So what will be the electric field? So here you can see that we have E into E star. So electric field at any time t, how can we write this electric field? So this will be equal to E0 first of all. So this is the amplitude at time t is equal to 0 into e power minus iota omega naught t. So this will make the electric field a sinusoidal function, as we know that electric field is a sinusoidal function of time. So this factor will give us the phase change, or you can say this will be leading to us as a sinusoidal wave. But in this particular case, the intensity is given by I naught into e power minus t by tau. So if you are taking the electric field as E0 into e power minus iota omega naught t, and when you will find the intensity, what you will get? So you will find E star first of all. So E is nothing but E0 into e power minus iota omega naught t, and when you will find E star, that will be equal to E0 as it is into e power, instead of iota you will write minus iota, so that will be plus iota omega naught t. So if you suppose the electric field in this manner, the sinusoidal electric field equation, if you suppose it in this manner, then E star will be given by this expression, and when you will multiply E and E star, that must give you the intensity, that must give you this formula. But in this case, if you are supposing electric field to be a perfectly sinusoidal function of time t, so in this case if you will multiply E and E star, what you will get? You will get E0 square, and this term will cancel with this term. So you will just get E0 square. But what you want? You want I0 into e power minus t by tau. So you need this factor in the case of intensity. So that will come when here you will write e power minus t by 2 tau, and over here also when you will do its conjugate, you will get e power minus t by 2 tau as it is. And now when you will multiply E and E star, you will get E0 square, which is nothing but I0 into e power minus t by 2 tau into e power minus t by 2 tau. That will give you e power minus t by tau. So that will give you this factor, and this factor and this one will cancel with each other. So knowing the intensity, we have found out, we have guessed the formula of the expression of the electric field any time t. So this expression of electric field, how does it look? So when we plot this expression of the electric field with time, so how does this expression look like? So on the horizontal axis we have time, and on the vertical axis we have the electric field. So when time t is equal to 0, there is maximum electric field. But as time progresses, you can see that this is the amplitude of the electric field. This is the amplitude of the electric field at any time t. So this will give you a phase change, but amplitude will be decided by this factor and this factor together. So E0 into e power minus t by 2 tau will be the amplitude of the electric field at any time t, and you can see the amplitude decays exponentially. So amplitude of the electric field decays exponentially. So the amplitude will decrease exponentially, and this factor will give us the sinusoidal behavior of the electric field. So this factor is responsible for the sinusoidal behavior, and this factor is responsible for the exponential decay of the amplitude of the electric field. So the electric field will actually look like this. So at time t is equal to 0, you will have maximum amplitude, and as time progresses, the electric field's amplitude will decrease exponentially. So this is the behavior of electric field with time t when we are considering a two-level system, when we are considering the radiations which are emitted by this two-level system. So there is an exponential decrease of the amplitude, and this e power minus iota omega naught t will give us this sinusoidal behavior of the electric field. So you can see that this behavior of the electric field is similar to the damped oscillator. This is similar to that of a damped oscillator, which you might have done in the subject of vibration and waves in second year. So this is the kind of electric field which is associated with the radiations which are coming out of this two-level system. So in this case, the electric field is amplitude modulated. So this is an amplitude modulated wave. So in this case, the electric field is amplitude modulated, and if any wave is amplitude modulated, there is a frequency spectrum which is associated with it. If any wave is amplitude modulated, then there is a frequency spectrum which is associated with that wave. So now we are going to find what is the frequency spectrum which is associated with this electric field. So we know the formula of the electric field. So that is E0 into e power minus t by 2 tau into e power minus iota omega naught t. So now we want to find out the frequency spectrum of this wave. To find out the frequency spectrum, we will take the Fourier transform. So we will take the Fourier transform of this electric field. The Fourier transform of E of t will be given by E of omega, and that is equal to 1 by 2 pi into 0 to infinity, integral of 0 to infinity into E of t into e power iota omega t into dt. So this is how you calculate the Fourier transformation of any function which is dependent upon time. So this is equal to 1 by 2 pi into 0 to infinity integral. Now E of t is E0 into e power minus t by 2 tau into e power minus iota omega naught t into e power iota omega t as it is into dt. So you will solve this expression, and that will be 1 by 2 pi. Now E0 is a constant term, so E0 can be taken outside the integral. Inside the integration you will have e power, so you can take the minus t outside, so you can take minus t outside. So what you will get inside the bracket, so you will be left with, so you are taking minus t outside, you will have 1 by 2 tau, then minus t is taken outside, minus t is taken outside the bracket, so you will have iota omega 0. So you will have iota omega 0, and over here you will have minus iota omega into dt. So this one will be written as E0 divided by 2 pi integral of 0 to infinity. Now this can be written as t 1 by 2 tau. So this 1 by tau, this can be written as gamma, which is the damping factor. So this 1 by tau can be written as gamma, which is the damping factor. So this can be written as 1 by 2 tau. So instead of 1 by tau, you can write as gamma and divide by 2 as it is, plus you can write iota omega 0 minus omega, or you can write it as minus outside and omega minus omega 0 inside the bracket into dt. So this will be equal to E0 divided by 2 pi. Now you will do its integration. So this is nothing but e power at into dt. So e power at into dt is nothing but integral of e power at into dt is nothing but e power at as it is divided by a. So here we have e power minus t gamma divided by 2 minus iota omega minus omega 0 as it is, divide by the constant term which is minus of gamma by 2 minus iota omega minus omega 0. So in the denominator we will have its magnitude, because here we have iota. So in the denominator we will write its magnitude. So we will have minus gamma by 2 minus iota omega minus omega 0. and the limits are from 0 to infinity. So this can be written as E0 divided by 2 pi and magnitude of minus gamma by 2 minus iota omega minus omega 0. So first of all you will insert the limit of infinity. So e power minus infinity will be nothing but equal to 0, and minus of, you will put over here the lower limit, so that will be minus of e power minus 0, that will be just 1. So this can be written as E0 divided by 2 pi. So this you will get minus 1, so that minus will cancel with this minus and this minus. So you will have 1 divided by magnitude of gamma by 2 plus iota omega minus omega 0. So now this is the frequency, this is the Fourier transform of E of t. So you will have the equation in terms of omega. So earlier we had the electric field written in terms of the time variable. After the Fourier transformation, we have got the equation in terms of omega. So we have got E in terms of omega. So now we will write the intensity. So what is the intensity I of omega? So this will be nothing but directly proportional to E of omega into E star of omega. So intensity is nothing but directly proportional to E into E star. So I of omega will be directly proportional to E of omega into conjugate of E of omega. So here also we will do the same thing. So this will be directly proportional to E of omega into E star omega. So what is E of omega? That is E0 by 2 pi into 1 divided by gamma by 2 plus iota omega minus omega 0 into E star of omega. So what is E star of omega? So that will be E0 by 2 pi as it is. Instead of iota we will write as minus iota. So that will be 1 divided by gamma by 2 minus of iota omega minus omega 0. So when you will solve it, you will get E0 by 2 pi whole square into 1 divided by gamma by 2 whole square, and you will have plus omega minus omega 0 whole square. So when you will solve it, you will get this expression. So this is the expression of I of omega. Now over here, we know that intensity, as we have seen that when you draw intensity versus frequency, the curve looks something like this. The intensity versus frequency, or the angular frequency in this case. So in this case, the intensity, as we have said that intensity, the behavior of the intensity with frequency is given by g of omega, which is the line shape function. So g of omega has the same shape as of this graph. So intensity, the behavior of intensity with frequency is also given by this same line shape function. So intensity is dependent upon the line shape function. So in this case, intensity is dependent upon omega by this factor, by this whole factor 1 divided by this factor which is dependent upon omega. So g of omega from this case we can write as g of omega will be, as we know that intensity is proportional to g of omega, so this factor will be nothing but the line shape function. So this factor, this term will decide the shape of the intensity versus frequency curve. So this is nothing but the line shape function. So from here you can write as g of omega is equal to, so this can be written as proportional to, g of omega is proportional to 1 divided by this whole term. So that is 1 divided by gamma by 2 whole square plus omega minus omega 0 whole square. So this is proportional to this one, and when you will remove this proportionality and write equal to sign, then you have to insert a proportionality constant, and let's say that proportionality constant is, so when you will remove this proportionality and you will insert equal to sign, here you have to insert a proportionality constant, and let's denote it by small k. So g of omega came out to be equal to, for the case of classical explanation of the natural broadening, g of omega came out to be equal to k divided by gamma by 2 whole square plus omega minus omega 0 whole square. So now to find this proportionality constant, what do we want? We want to find the actual formula of actual expression of g of omega. So for that we have to determine this k, and this k can be determined from the normalization condition that this g of omega must be a normalized function. So if g of omega, let's say g of omega varies with omega in this manner, so if g of omega varies with this omega in this manner, then area under this curve must be equal to unity. So we have to make the area under the curve unity, and that is what we call as normalization. So now we are going to normalize this function, means integral of g of omega into d omega must be equal to 1, and the limits will be from minus infinity to infinity. So over here we will insert this formula in the case of g of omega, and we will have minus infinity to infinity k divided by gamma by 2 whole square plus omega minus omega 0 whole square into d of omega must be equal to 1. So now we are going to solve this one. So this k is a proportionality constant and it can be taken outside the integral. So you will have k into integration from minus infinity to infinity 1 divided by gamma by 2 whole square plus omega minus omega 0 whole square into d of omega. This must be equal to 1. Now to solve this definite integral, we will use the formula that minus infinity to infinity of 1 divided by a square plus x square into dx. So that is equal to 1 by a into tan inverse of x divided by a. So we are going to use this identity. So in this case, what is x? X is given by omega minus omega naught. So in this case, x is omega minus, or you can insert over here omega minus omega naught can be inserted as x. So d of omega in this case will be equal to dx. So x is nothing but omega minus omega 0, and d omega in that case will be equal to dx. So this integral is similar to this one. So this integration, this is similar to this one. So we can use the formula given by this identity. So over here, what is a? A is given by gamma by 2. So here we have a square. So here we have a square. So a is given by gamma by 2. So when you will solve it, so this k will remain as it is, and solution of this integral will be 1 divided by a. So a is gamma by 2. So here we have 1 divided by gamma by 2 into tan inverse of x by a. So over here, sorry, I have written the limits. So this formula is for indefinite integral. And when you want to use the limits, in that case we will insert the limits over here from minus infinity to infinity. So this formula which I have written, this is for indefinite integral. So this will be equal to, solution of this integration will be 1 divided by a tan inverse of x by a. Now x is omega minus omega 0, divided by a is gamma by 2. And over here we are using the limits are from minus infinity to infinity. So over here we are going to use the limits of minus infinity to infinity, and that must be equal to 1. So this is the normalization condition. So k into 2 by gamma, and over here when you will put tan inverse of infinity, when you will insert infinity in place of omega, and in this case we are considering that small values of gamma. So in that case, when you will put tan inverse of in place of omega, if you will insert infinity, so tan inverse of infinity is nothing but pi by 2 minus, then you will insert the lower limit, and that will be tan inverse of minus infinity, and that will be minus pi by 2. So that must be equal to 1. So from here you can easily find out the proportionality constant. So k into 2 by gamma into pi, that must be equal to 1. So from here k will be equal to gamma divided by 2 pi. So this is the expression of the proportionality constant which we have obtained using the normalization condition. So over here in the formula of g of omega, this k is equal to gamma divided by 2 pi. So g of omega will come out to be equal to gamma divided by 2 pi into 1 divided by gamma by 2 whole square as it is, plus omega minus omega 0 whole square. So this is the final expression of the line shape function which we have got from the classical explanation of the natural broadening. So from here, when you will plot this graph, when you will plot g of omega with respect to omega, so when you will plot it, the shape will come something like this. So this is the line shape function which we have got in case of the natural broadening. And this shape which you will get when you will plot g of omega with omega versus omega, so this shape is called as Lorentzian shape. So you will see that in the case of Doppler broadening, the line shape function has a Gaussian shape. So as we have discussed in the previous lecture, that homogeneous broadening, the shape of the line shape function in the case of homogeneous broadening is Lorentzian, and this natural broadening comes under the homogeneous broadening, and here we can see that the shape of the line shape function is Lorentzian. So now in this case we are going to determine delta omega, or the full width at half maximum. So we can find out delta omega. So how do we find out delta omega? So in this case g of omega, so this is the maximum value of g of omega, and this maximum value occurs at omega 0. So when omega is equal to omega 0, at that time g of omega is maximum. So how do we find delta omega, or the full width at half maximum? How do we find it? We take half of the maximum value. So let's say we take its half and we come at this point. Then corresponding to this point we get two frequencies. So let's say you get omega 1 and here you get omega 2, and difference of these two frequencies will give us the full width at half maximum. So this is the line shape function expression for the case of natural broadening. Now what is the maximum value of g of omega? So when you will insert omega 0 in place of omega, so when the angular frequency is equal to omega 0, in that case g of omega is maximum. So first of all we will insert the angular frequency omega 0 in place of omega. So that will be equal to g of omega 0 will be equal to gamma by 2 pi into 1 divided by omega 0 minus omega 0 whole square, that will be equal to 0. So you will get gamma by 2 whole square. So this will be nothing but equal to gamma by 2 pi into 4 divided by gamma square. So this will be equal to 2 divided by pi gamma. So this is the maximum value of line shape function in the case of natural broadening. Now we want to find out full width at half maximum. So first of all we are going to do half of the maximum value. So this is the maximum value of the line shape function corresponding to omega 0 as the angular frequency. So what will be half of omega 0? What will be half of g of omega 0? That will be equal to half of 2 by pi gamma. So that will be 1 by pi gamma. So this is the half of the maximum value. So corresponding to this value of the line shape function, we have to determine delta omega. So this is the half of the maximum value. Corresponding to this half value, you have to find out delta omega. So now g of omega must be equal to 1 by pi gamma. So g of omega must be equal to 1 divided by pi gamma if we want to find out delta omega. So over here g of omega must be 1 by pi gamma. So 1 by pi gamma. So this is the value of the line shape function at half of its maximum value. So this will be equal to gamma by 2 pi as it is into 1 divided by omega minus omega 0 whole square plus gamma by 2 whole square. Now corresponding to this half of the maximum value of line shape function, corresponding to this value, you will get omega 1 and omega 2. So you will get two angular frequencies on the frequency axis. So let's denote these frequencies, let's denote them by omega half. So omega half is the frequency corresponding to half of the maximum value of the line shape function. So omega half is not half of omega 0. So do not get confused by this, that omega half is not half of omega 0. These are the frequencies which correspond to half of the maximum value of the line shape function. So now we will solve this. So you will get omega half minus omega 0. So you will rearrange this equation. You will get equal to gamma square divide by 2. So when you will rearrange it, you will get gamma square divide by 2, and over here you have gamma square divide by 4. So omega half minus omega 0 whole square, that will come out to be equal to gamma square by 2 minus gamma square by 4. So that will be nothing but gamma square by 4. So omega half minus omega 0 whole square has come out to be equal to gamma square divided by 4. So from here you can find out omega half minus omega 0. So that will be square root on the right hand side, and square root will be equal to plus minus gamma divided by 2. So when you will do the square root on the right hand side, you will get plus minus gamma divided by 2. So over here, omega half minus omega 0 can be equal to plus gamma by 2, or omega half, the other condition that we have got, omega half minus omega 0 will be equal to minus gamma divided by 2. From this condition, this first condition, what will be omega half? Because we want to find delta omega, we want to find the two frequencies corresponding to half of the maximum value of g of omega. So we want to find out these two frequencies which correspond to half of the maximum value of the line shape function. So over here we have got two equations. So from these two equations we will get two different values of omega half. So that will be omega 1 and omega 2 respectively. So from this equation, omega half will be equal to gamma by 2 plus omega 0. And from this second equation, you will get omega half is equal to minus gamma by 2 plus omega 0. So this is the first frequency corresponding to the half of the maximum value of the line shape function, and this is the another expression of the frequency. So one value of frequency is equal to gamma by 2 plus omega 0, and another is omega 0 minus gamma divided by 2. So what will be the line width? Means what will be the full width at half maximum? Means we have to just subtract omega 2 and omega 1. So this is the line shape function g of omega versus omega. It looks like this. So for half of the maximum value of g of omega, you get two frequencies. So one is this one and another is this one. So when you will subtract these two frequencies, you will get full width. You will get full width at half maximum. So this will be the line width. So over here we have got one value of omega corresponding to half of the maximum value of line shape function. So we have got one value of omega, that is omega 0 plus gamma by 2. So omega 0 plus gamma by 2. So this is the central frequency, which is omega 0. So one value of omega we have got as omega 0 plus gamma by 2, and another value we have got as omega 0 minus gamma by 2. So this is the lower frequency, and this one is the higher frequency above omega 0. So what will be delta omega in this case? Delta omega will be equal to this minus this one. So this frequency minus this frequency will give us the line width. So that will come out to be equal to delta omega will be equal to this minus this, that will be equal to gamma. So delta omega, the line width in the case of natural broadening, comes out to be equal to gamma. And what is gamma? This is the damping factor, and this was supposed to be equal to 1 by tau. So gamma is the damping factor and that is equal to 1 by tau. So tau is the lifetime of an energy state. So gamma has come out to be equal to 1 by tau. So this is the full width at half maximum for the case of natural broadening, and this is the expression of the line shape function which we have got classically. By classical explanation we have got this g of omega. In the next lecture we will see the quantum treatment of the natural broadening, and we will also discuss about the collision broadening.